What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today, as you can see by the title, we are installing a new washer fluid reservoir for Project Raptor. This install process will be for all 2007 through 2011 Jeep JK and JKUs with the 3.8 liter V6. I was going to do it for all 2007 through 2018 Jeep JK and JKUs, but the ones from 2012 through 18 are a little bit more complex than the ones through 07 through 11. So just for the sake of this video, it's only going to be for 2007 through 2011 Jeep JK and JKUs. Now, let's go ahead and show you what we're installing today. Now, this is our washer fluid reservoir plus tray that we're going to be installing into Project Raptor. Now, many of you are probably wondering, why didn't I just buy the washer fluid reservoir by itself? And the thing is, you can't. You cannot find a washer fluid reservoir, just the reservoir, the clear part that you see. They do not make them, and there is no such thing. You have to buy this entire assembly if you want to replace your washer fluid reservoir. Solely to the fact that this piece, the reservoir itself, is not one piece and then the tray is another piece. This piece is molded onto this tray. So we're going to be replacing the entire thing, as you guys can already tell, and I'm going to be walking through the entire process with you guys. I have no idea how to do this. I've never done one of these before. Just like the sound bar in one of our previous videos, I'll link that up top somewhere if you guys want to check that out. This is my first time doing this, so we're going to be learning this all together. Let's go ahead and jump into the tools that we need for this installation. Now, obviously, you will need your washer fluid reservoir, aka tray, or whatever you want to call this whole assembly. You will need this. You will need your washer fluid cap off of the old one we're pulling off. You can go ahead and pull it off now, or you can pull it off later on when we have the whole thing out. Does not matter to me. I'll be using my Milwaukee 3/8 drive with a little adapter from 3/8 to 1/4 inch and a 13/32 socket. Now, you can use a 13/32 socket. It fits most of the bolts on here. Some of them we will need more sockets, but all the bolts on here are 10 millimeter that we will be replacing or taking out. So I don't have a 10 millimeter. I lost mine. So 13/32 is just going to have to do it for us. So that's all I know for now. I know there are some bolts in here that are smaller than a 10 millimeter or a 13/32. So I'll talk about those later on in the video. Let's go ahead and jump into this installation. Now, our first order of business is removing these two bolts here and here. And like I said, they're either a 10 millimeter or a 13/32 socket for these bolts. And you can go ahead and take these and put them on your new reservoir in the spots that they go, just in case, or just so we don't lose these bolts. Now, just a heads up, for this next part, you will need a pretty long 3/8 extension, or whatever kind of tool you're using. You will need a really long extension. All right, so the next bolts that we will be removing are this one right here on the front of the reservoir here. The other one is right back here, right down there on a stud, right behind the tray and next to the master cylinder. All right, so once all of 4 of those bolts are removed, our next step that we need to do is remove these 2 little plastic clips right here, holding this wiring harness in place alongside this one down here. All right, so our next step after we've disconnected these, I went ahead and just cut them. I do have more of these clips, and you can buy these clips, a bunch of different clips that are used on these Jeeps on Amazon. I can link those in the description box below if you're interested. And you've got this one disconnected as well. The next step we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect this ground wire right here, these 2 bolts on this left side, and this 1 bolt on this side. But before we do that, I recommend just going ahead and disconnecting the negative battery terminal just in case. All right, so once you got those bolts removed, our next step is to remove the bolt that is holding the ABS module into place. All right, our next step is coming underneath where the fender well is. Now, if you do have inner fenders, you will have to remove them. And we're gonna remove these hoses from these little clips right here. Do not break these clips. I mean, you can break the clips since we're not gonna be reusing the tray, but there is a clip here and there's a clip right back there, and you're just gonna remove these hoses out of the way, and then we can go ahead and move on to the next step. All right, so once you have removed those hoses, next thing you want to do is disconnect the hose that's going to one of your washer fluid sprayers. And so that removes it from here, these clips here, and this clip here. And you can just go ahead and feed it, get it out of the way. I'm gonna have to feed it underneath my cable for my sub. All right, so since we removed the negative battery terminal on the battery, we can go ahead and remove our ECU entirely. And what you're gonna do is slide these slide the red clips all the way back. And don't worry, these plugs, 4 plugs, are color coded. So if you don't know where they go, they're all color coded to the ECU. So don't worry about that. And all I did to remove these clips is take a flathead, let's see if I can do it one-handed, slide those back just like that. And you're gonna push this little black clip down right here and wiggle those out and remove your ECU entirely. Now, in the previous step, I did mention there's a plug down here on your washer fluid pump that I couldn't get to, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove the ECU entirely and go ahead and swap it over to the new box and remove that clip down there for the washer fluid pump. Now that we got the ECU loosely onto the new tray, this wire should have came off. Now this wire acts as a ground wire and goes up underneath your ECU. So you're gonna go ahead and just put this up underneath the ECU. I'm gonna try and do this one-handed to show you guys. And the one with the little curved bend goes on this this hole here and acts as a ground, and this other end comes through this loop here and bolts right up to here with this other ground wire. So just make sure you have those installed onto here when you put this all back together with the ECU. And here are the little color coding, black, orange, white, and green. They're up underneath all my dirt here, so just wipe those off and you can get everything just connected back up when we go ahead and install this back in the Jeep. All right, so what I ended up doing was not removing the clip on the pump, but just pulling it out of its little itty bitty clip. You can see right there on the plastic. Just pop that out, and just pull the little hoses off of the pump itself, and it will come out with the wiring harness. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to have to pause this video and pick this back up tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow, we'll see. And I'm going to have to go and get a new pump. While I have this out, I'm going to go ahead and just replace the pump, and we'll see you guys when we pick this video back up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the next day, and I have went and got I think it's pronounced Trico is the brand. This is the new washer fluid pump. This is about $46 after tax from O'Reilly's. And this does have, there are 2 different versions of this. The first one is if you don't have a rear wiper, and the second one is if you do have a rear wiper. And I do, so, and mine doesn't, my rear wiper doesn't, it works, but there's no fluid going back there, so I think the pump is actually the problem. So this might be a good thing just to go ahead and replace while you're in here. Now the next step we're gonna do is remove the ABS module from the tray. Now, you want to be very gentle when we do this. So we got a little pry tool here, and we're going to be popping the ABS module out of place from these 2 studs, as you guys can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to gently pry this up like so, get our pry tool in between and underneath it, and pop it up out of the tray. Okay, so as you can see, some shit has happened. and I don't say that lightly, but excuse my language. So to get the tray out, I thought that removing the 2 studs on this was the last piece of the puzzle, but it was not. So on the back here, there's this wiring harness, and you're going to remove this itty bitty, it's a Christmas tree plug back there from the back of the tray. And it should come out in one piece, but for me it did not. So I had to redneck science the shit and very carefully cut the motherfucker in half. Excuse my French again. And it came out. So no, I am not cutting this in half and putting it back in, because what's the point of buying a whole new deal when you have to cut it in half to get it in there? But our next step is to put this back in the Jeep, hopefully very smoothly. Now, one of the things I did run into, besides having to cut it in half, don't make fun of me for cutting it in half, there's just some shit that you have to do, was the shock mount right here. So getting it into place was just a little hairy. Getting it out, getting the tray out was a little hairy going above that. But be very careful with this. You don't want to mess up your ABS module at all. But when you pry it out, just be very gentle. It's not very flexible, and we don't want it to be resting on those brake lines for very much longer. So we're going to try and get it back in here as, I guess, peacefully as we can. Now, it would be easier if we just took out the entire ABS module, but then we'd have to rebleed the brakes and all that stuff. So we don't really need to do that. So let's go ahead and see if we can finagle this thing back into place. All right, so it took a lot of finagling to get this thing in here, but we finally got it into place where it needs to be. Yes, it does need to be moved just a little bit, but it moves fine just like it is. So the first thing that I did to get, when I got this thing back in here, it took a lot of force. Well, not really a lot of force. I just had to pry it above where the shock tower was, but it went back in perfectly fine. Thank God I didn't have to cut it in half, because that would have ruined the whole purpose here. But what I did next was took the washer fluid lines, and I ran them back through the little hole here and clipped them all back into place right there and out through the bottom, and we'll run those here in just a little bit. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my bolts back into place, just so I can hold this thing into place while I put everything back together. I'm not going to tighten them down. I'm just going to run them a few threads in, and then we can move on to the next step. Now, I did go ahead and put the bolts back in, not all the way down, but close to the bottom on this back one, or I'm sorry, the front one here, the 2 on the sides, and the one that's down there. I went ahead and put those back into place, not, like I said, all the way tightened, but just to hold this in place while we put everything back together. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the ABS module back into these rubber grommets, and it's this one here and this one here. You just go ahead and line those up, and we can move on to the next step. All right, guys, so I had to pause the video from the last clip because it started raining, but I got the ABS module into place. You don't want to push on the brake lines because you don't want these to break. It's a very important part of the vehicle, obviously. But I would push on right here, and I got up top on this part of the Jeep and pushed down right here, and I got them into place. So our next step is we're going to take this bolt and we're going to bolt it back into the ABS module to fully secure that in place. All right, so the next step here, after you've got this bolt in right here holding the ABS module into place, the next thing we can do is hook up our hose for the spray. Now, the spray one, as we disconnect it from these lines, we can go ahead and hook those all back up. And this hose, this corresponding hose, is the one, I'm gonna come down here and show you, is the one. Mine are kind of color coded in a way. This one had a like a tag around it, which is white in color, and then this one's just a solid black. So the one with the little tag around it is the one that is the sender, like it sends it to the windshield, and the other one is the one that goes to your back rear wiper. So we can go ahead and reroute these wires back up into that little hole right there, and then we can move on to the next step. All right, once you've got your wires into place here. The next step I'm going to do really quickly is this wiring harness right down there that I'm pointing at. It has that little grommet on it, and we can go ahead and stick it back in that back hole right there where you see the Christmas tree grommet. Go ahead and stick that back in, and we can go ahead and move on to reconnecting our washer fluid pump. All right, guys, so I'm cutting in between a few segments here to let you guys know what's going on. So I reassembled everything and got the video entirely done, and went to put washer fluid in the reservoir, and it leaked all out the bottom again. And I was wondering why, so I did some research. So on the bottom of the pump, there is this plastic grommet with a strainer, it's a strainer on the bottom of your pump, right? And this sits inside the it's a little round cylinder, I don't know what you call it, part of the reservoir that this strainer sits into, right? And I read up on some forums, and they said do not use, you can reuse this, but do not reuse it. That's kind of double-edged sword there, but do not reuse this OEM part. You don't want to buy a new one of these. You don't want to use the old one. What you want to get, which I thought this was weird too, so this is going to sound weird, is the exact same one, but from BMW. Yes, I know that's weird. BMW part on a Jeep. That's very weird. But the difference between these two is on the OEM one, this is a plastic grommet. And on the BMW one, this is a rubber grommet. And it provides a lot better seal to the bottom of the windshield washer pump, so there won't be any leaks. So instead of using this, you want to buy one of these. Now, I'll link where I got mine down in the description box below. It's like 25 bucks on Amazon, which is really kind of expensive for this little part. You might be able to find one cheaper somewhere else, but I'll have the part number right here so you know where to find it. This, I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the pump. I've already got the entire thing reassembled, but that's in the next clip showing you guys how to reassemble everything. But I wanted to just cut in here and say to use one of the BMW part other than the Mopar part. It works a lot better, apparently. But we're going to find out. I might cut in later in the video and show you guys whether it leaks or not. And if it does, we'll have to make another video on how to fix that. But if it doesn't, good. So I was told to use this by someone on a forum. I don't remember their name, but thank you, whoever you were. And let's go ahead and reinstall this filter. So like I said in the previous clip, I'm sorry if there's any wind noise. What you're going to do, I know all of this is back together, but in the next clips, I'll show you how to reassemble it. We're going to take our pump, which is all hooked up properly and everything. Like I said, that's in the next clips. We're going to take our brand new grommet here and put it on the bottom of the pump and slide the pump back into place. Now, for the hoses, like I said in one of the previous clips, my hoses are kind of quote unquote marked in a way. So one hose is white, which goes to the white part of the pump, and the other one's a black hose and goes to the black part of the pump, which is the back side of the white. Go ahead and hook those up, plug your harness back in, and we're going to put this filter or strainer on the bottom of the pump and go ahead and put the pump back into its OEM spot. Now, once you got all of these back in place, this is our ground. I've already got one of them hooked up right here, and that is to this wire right here. I ran it underneath my ECM and ran it to right here. Went ahead and put it on the bolt hole, and we can go ahead and do the same thing with this one. We can take this nut off, slide both of these ground wires on here, and tighten this bolt up. All right, so this bolt is back in. I went ahead and reconnected this rubber grommet to this plastic hole here and cut these two zip ties off that were holding our wiring harness up. I'm going to get some zip ties now and go around these and go through these little two black holes right here, and so I can secure this back to where it was, and we can move on to the next and hopefully final step. Now I've got our zip ties in place, and the next thing we can go ahead and do is tighten down all of our bolts. It Doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm gonna go with this one first, second, third, and the last one down there is fourth. And then we can move on to our final step. All the bolts are tightened down, and the next and final step is to put this cap back on. You just slide it up underneath this plastic ring here and snap it back down into place. You can go ahead and add your washer fluid in and test her out. And if, I will say this, if it does not work, if the washer fluid does not come out, you might try and swap the hoses on the washer fluid pump, and that could be an issue as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put some washer fluid in here and put this cap back on, and then we can close out this video. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video and if I helped you out in any way, shape, or form, give me a like on this video. Comment down below on what videos you'd like to see on this channel. I'm thinking about doing some more trail riding videos. I haven't done those in quite a long time, actually. So if you guys would like to see some of that, give me a like or comment down below and give me your feedback, and subscribe for more content like this. New videos every week. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.